Hi there! In this video, we're going to showcase how to migrate a classic handler setup to a Nex-Gen Handler setup in the Email This Issue app in Jira. The video will consist of 3 sections. In the first one, I'm going to show you how the classic handler is set up and how it works. In the second section, I'm going to show you how to migrate all configuration parts from the classic handler to the Nex-Gen handler. And lastly, we're going to see how the Nex-Gen handler works and what were the results of the migration. Enjoy and let us know in a service request if you have any questions, and feel free to reach out to us on Atlassian Marketplace. So as I said in the first part of our video, we're just going to check how the classic handler works. I've set up a fairly simple classic handler configuration, and a huge part of it is in Jira administration incoming email. As you probably all know, the classic handler was dependent on Jira's incoming mail handling. So we did not have any connection and access to your inbox while using the classic handler. It was dependent on Jira's incoming mail handling. So as you can see, I have a test IMAP connection set up already for jettitest@outlook.com. So this is not an OAuth2 account, but another kind of just a simple IMAP connection. And I also have the Email This Issue mail handler set up here. I'm just going to open it for editing, making sure that it's not on local files, but on the mail account that I've created beforehand. And I'm just going to show you that it's going to open a request in the demo project, a service request issue type, and it's going to ignore bulk emails. That's going to come in handy. I'm going to show you in the Nex-Gen handler how it works. But just for now, keep in mind that we're going to be ignoring bulk emails. You can also see the default reporter here, which in my case is META-admin. That's a technical user. No one's using it for anything else. It's only the default reporter we're going to use just in case someone writes us who doesn't have a permission to open requests or anything. So I'm just going to save it and show you how the classic mail handler is set up. As you can see here, the project and the issue type is already selected. The strategy is going to be service desk create or comment customer requests that support split regex. So that means we're going to be working in service management, on a service management project. And we're going to create customer request type get IT help. The service desk comment visibility will be default behavior. So the comments will not always be internal, they'll not always be public, and public comments for customers only. It's going to be the default behavior. Depending on permissions and with whom the request is shared. When customers are created and when participants are added, you can see the default welcome templates selected here. Now, what we'll be able to do in the Nex-Gen handler is that we're going to be able to send an email when customers are created, but unfortunately, adding participants and sending a template is not yet supported with the Nex-Gen handler. Basically, the same applies to unrelated customers, which in case of the classic handler was selectable to comment all requests or create new requests. For this demonstration, I've set it to comment all requests, because if you leave it to create new requests, that means that every reply that's from an unrelated customer is going to create a new request, and we don't want that. So just comment all requests. What you can see in the handler actions is that I also want to execute workflow transitions on issues. based on a transition property or a field rule. I'm also going to show you, we're going to initialize some issue fields based on the email's content, and there are some emails we don't want to be processed, so we're going to filter them using these handler actions. It's very important that if you've had any field rules, as you can see here in the field context, they're not going to be working with the Nex-Gen handlers. They've got separate actions for them. We're going to show you how to set them up today, but it's very important to know that in the classic handler, you've had to have these options enabled and the checkboxes ticked in order for them to work. In the Acknowledge Incoming Emails section, you can see that no event is selected, so we're not going to fire any events today, in addition, of course, to the original issue created or commented events, which are always fired. You can also see that we are going to be acknowledging new issues and new comments. That's going to be set up with some great service desk templates, such as the service desk request created and the commented templates, and we're going to send them as an auto reply in the Nex-Gen handler. So the senders and recipients section here, you can see it consists of a lot of different fields. They're not exactly user-friendly. The Nex-Gen handler actually works better with senders and recipients. I'm going to show you how to set them up, but for now, we're going to save the sender's email address and names into different custom fields. And for user recipients, we're going to treat them as email addresses. We've decided that we also want to save the to and CC recipients from the email to one custom field, which is going to be the to recipient custom field. And we don't want the mail handler's email address to be saved into any kind of custom fields, because that would create an email loop, and we don't want that. And this is why you have the email address exclusion field here. You can simply place the IMAP address here so that it's not going to cause any loops in your Jira instances. For the split regex section, you can see that I've created two split regexes, which are usually good for Outlook or Gmail emails. So whenever we reply to an email that comes from either Gmail or Outlook, the previous emails from the thread are not going to be added as a comment. You can see that we could also do that when creating issues, but I don't think that's necessary right now, because if you have a very long email thread, maybe between stakeholders and some other customers, having a huge email thread, you might not want to miss any vital information that's in the thread itself. So for issue creation, I'm just going to leave this function disabled. For the external email senders, we want to accept them for mail processing. For the Gmail strategy, you can see that we are ignoring emails sent from either your own Jira or from any other Jira instance. And for the sake of this test, we're also not going to ignore issue ID in email headers. That just means that whenever you send an email to not just the mail account that's connected with the mail handler, but to other people as well, maybe you have agents on CC, if they reply to the original email, even if the email subject doesn't have the issue key, because why would the original email have the issue key, of course, even then we're going to find the issue that's been created from the original email, and we'll be able to carry out actions on it. We'll be able to make a comment on it, run a workflow post function, or anything like that. So we're just going to save that. I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm sending an email from my own mail account. This is what we're going to do. You can see here that I'm also including order number. This is because in the field rules, I've wanted to show you how field initialization rules work. But in the classic handler, you had to add the field context, set up a scope for it. You can see here the project is demo, the issue type is service request. And what we want to achieve is that when someone opens a new request from the email, we want to take an order number from the email's body and take the first capture group and add it to the order number custom field as a value. We also want to be able to approve requests based on an email, and we're going to be filtering emails sent from any Proton mail domain. That is why in my email I'm including order number. So I'm just going to send it. You can see that this is the address of the mail account for which the mail handler is connected. This is another user, and on CC we have just another user to show you how this works. So I'm just going to send it now. You can see in the inbox that the email is already there. It's very important that you don't set this email to read, you don't open it. It's best if nobody has access to your mail account to which the mail handler is connected, because if anybody opens this email, it's going to be read, it's going to lose its UID for which we are looking for when processing emails, and the email will be unprocessed. You can see in the email log if the email has been processed. You can see that the last one was 23 minutes ago. I did an amount of testing in the past couple of days to see if this works well. So we're just going to refresh it and wait for it. You can see that it's accepted, you can see it's processed. And demo 58 is a new request that's been opened. So let me show you that it's been opened in the correct project. It's got service request, it's get IT help. You can see that the order number is here. The description has the email's body, while the subject has been translated as the summary. In the sender name, sender address field, and the to recipient field, you can see all the recipient and the sender's details that we've set up. Here you can also see that the reporter is the sender and the user on CC was the request participant, as well as the other person has been added as a watcher. This email has also been sent to this user. I've received a notification of it as well as the original email. And just to show you that we're still finding the request based on the original email, I'm just going to press reply all. And I'm just going to say, thanks T, this order is approved, because we want to trigger the execute workflow transition action. So you can just say cheers, we're going to send it. We're going to monitor everything in the email log. This is because emails processed by the classic handler will only be visible in the email log. With the Nex-Gen Handler, we were able to create separate incoming mail queues and mail logs, and the same applies to the outgoing mail, because that's our own. You can monitor and debug logs better with the Nex-Gen Handler, but for the classic handler, the email log is the only one we can use. You can see it's on demo 58 again. Let's just go back here. You can see that the comment is added. It's public because this person has the correct permissions. You can see that the previous email thread has been cut. So this is only the last reply of the person that's been added as a comment. And you can also see that the status has changed from waiting from support. I believe we can check that. Yes, waiting for support, to having been approved. So this is how the classic handler works now. In our next section, I'm just going to show you how to set up basically the same classic handler configuration in a Nex-Gen handler. Not exactly the same. I believe it's going to be even better because the Nex-Gen handler has so much more functionality over the classic handler. So let's just take a look at that. So as a first step of the migration, we're going to have to create a mail account in Email This Issue Administration. Because the classic handler was dependent on Jira and it had its IMAP connection in Jira Administration, we're going to have to create a mail account in our own app, and then we're going to delete the incoming mail configuration in Jira, and then we're going to enable everything as we go along. So for the mail account, just click on Add, and start configuring your IMAP connection. You can see this is fairly similar to what you have in Jira. So you can just give it a description, leave the protocol on IMAP, encryption can be this one. The host in our case is going to be Outlook. You can search it on Google, wherever. Basically the host is dependent on the email service provider and some other things. So the username is going to be the email address you're going to use. The password is going to be the password for that user. You can leave the port and the interval on default values unless you have some kind of different setup that needs the ports to be changed, or you want the time interval between email downloads greater than 1 minute. Folder, that's also, I think you can also do it in Jira. So you can just here select one of the folders to process the emails from. It doesn't necessarily need to be the inbox, but as a default, it is going to be the inbox. Also, a great feature that you have in the Nex-Gen Handler, which wasn't available in Jira as far as I know, you can select what happens to the emails after it's downloaded. So you can either mark them as seen or you can delete the messages. So for now, we're just going to mark them as seen. And we're going to turn on debug so that we can generate better logs for the mail handler. Press test connection. You can see that the connection has been successful, and just save it. It's important to note that as of now it's disabled, but in order to be able to select it in the mail handlers, you have to enable them. Don't worry, it's not going to cause any problems, because while we're configuring the Nex-Gen mail handler, all the emails are still going to be processed by the classic handler, because we're going to leave the Nex-Gen handler disabled. This is very important. Do not enable it, please. Click on Add to add the Nex-Gen handler. You can just give it a name. The description is not mandatory, so I'm just going to leave it blank. The mail account is going to be the one that we've just created. The default reporter is going to be the same that you have in Jira. Again, that's just a technical user. It's got administrative and I think agent rights, because due to an unfortunate service management API limitation, it has to be an agent for our app. We're also going to turn on debug mode and save it for good measure. You can see that it's now disabled, so we're just going to leave it at that. We're not going to be enable it, because what happens is when you have more than one mail handlers connected to mail accounts that are both enabled, looking at the same email address and the same folder, and they're not routed, the emails are not routed into different projects either, they're going to steal emails from one another, and that can cause serious problems within your Jira instance, having emails lost and unprocessed. So just don't do it, just leave it disabled. You can see you can configure it as well, even if it's disabled. So we're just going to do that. We're going to go by the previous classic handler setting that we have here. The first thing we have to look at, and it's written in very small here, it's just, it says bulk ignore. So that's actually a filter option in the Nex-Gen Handler. You can see that when you create a new Nex-Gen Handler, you already have some filter options added, and these are also just selectable. You can also delete them by pressing delete. You can add some more to these. I'm not going to talk of all of them today because we've done it in the last webinar, I think. But just to see that you have bulk ignore here, filter emails section also has the bulk emails option in it, as well as filtering delivery status notifications and other auto submitted emails that can be spams, that can be out of office emails, just auto submitted emails. We're also filtering large emails and emails sent from this or other Jira systems, but these can be set up in the classic handler portion and not in Jira administration. So I'm just going to go there and show you the original classic handler setup. We're going to go by that. So the first one you can see here is the scope. Let's keep in mind that this was a service desk create comment strategy. So for emails that are found and that are not found, we're going to have to set up separate create and comment actions. You can see that we are finding emails by their issue key in the subject, but as you can remember, we've also tried finding requests based on emails that did not have the issue key in them, and for this we're going to add the find issues by references in email headers action. And what you can see here is a snapshot version actually of our newest release that's going to be released next week, which is I think the 18th of August, so that's going to be in the past when you're watching this. Nonetheless, I really hope you're going to be able to enjoy this feature, because that means you are no longer going to need those long custom fields setups that you've needed, saving the message ID, the references and the in reply to headers. You can just select this action and it's going to be all done in the background by us. So for issues that are found, we'll be creating comments, right? So I'm just going to add the add comment action, and I believe we could see it here that this was added with the default behavior. For the attachment section, you could not set it up here in the classic handler, but in the Nex-Gen Handler, you actually have more options to choose from. And so we're going to be using the filter attachments using the attachment filters action. And I'm going to show you how to filter small attachments, very small attachments that are usually signatures, images, kinds of things like that are smaller than 10 kilobytes. So we're just going to filter that. And for the split regex section, we're going to use the one that we've used here. You can see that this is going to look a little bit different because the classic handler used split regexes with per syntax, and the Nex-Gen Handler uses Java 8 syntax, but that just means you have to remove the dashes before and after the split regex. So this is the comment, and you can see here we have the default reported comment event. So we've had some issues with handling service level agreement before with the Nex-Gen Handler, and so we had to come up with a solution where our users will be able to choose the best configurations for them. So you have three kind of events that can be selected here, which is no event, email this issue event, and service management event. If you choose no event function here, that means that your comment will not trigger anything. So this means that there will be no Jira service management events thrown, automations will not be triggered, and no notifications will be sent, but as a result, your SLA will remain intact. So your SLAs will not be hurt. In the second option, in the email this issue event, the comment will only trigger notifications from the app. So if you have any Jira customer notifications, they will not be sent. Only email this issue notifications will be sent. No automation will be triggered, but the SLA also remains intact. Now in the last option, the service management event, the comment is added as if it was left by an administrator. This means that the service management event will be thrown as usual. So if you have any Jira notifications, they will work, email this issue notifications will work, automations will be triggered, but your SLAs will not work as you would expect them to be working. So they will be stopped by the comment if they should not be stopped. That's something to keep in mind. For our test, I'm just going to select email this issue event. And as you can see here, this is also a new feature. You were not, previously when using Jira and classic mail handlers, you were not able to attach the original incoming email as an EML file. Here in the Nex-Gen Handler, you can do that for both emails that are leaving comments and for ones that create new requests. For now, I'm going to not turn this on. I'm going to leave it disabled because I believe that would just not be useful for our scenario, so I'm just going to save it. So this is what happens when you find the email. Let's just go back to the classic handler. Let's see what else we have here. Right, service desk comment visibility default behavior is now added. You can see that we have two welcome templates set up here. When customers are created, that's a tricky one. We're going to get back to it when I'm going to show you sign up in the Save Senders and Recipients field. This is something that we can now do with the Nex-Gen Handler. For the last two functions, unfortunately, the Nex-Gen Handler does not provide yet. It is out of scope at the moment. We're going to revisit it sometimes later this year or next year. But for now, please know that these functions are unavailable in the Nex-Gen Handler. So I'm going to start with the filter incoming emails handler action here, because this can be added in the first section of the filter emails part. We're going to add emails by email attribute, because here you will be able to give a template to bounce the incoming email. The filter name is going to be Proton Mail Filter. The email field is going to be the sender email address, and the regular expression will be fairly simple one, just from emails with the protonmail.com domain. For the template, I've already created a bounce email template and just going to save that. You can see it's already added here. For the rest of the handler actions, going to have to create actions here and here. So we're going to be initializing issue fields. And if you remember, this was based on new email requests. So we're going to have to start adding the create issue action to the if issue not found for email section. So this was the demo project. You can see here, issue type service request, and it was a get IT help request type. To add attachments, we're just going to use the filter attachments the same as for the comment. And the split regex is going to be the same as it is for the comments. Just remember removing the dashes because it's in Java 8 syntax. And we're not going to add the EML file for now. We're just gonna save it. Right, so you can see that the save senders and recipients action is automatically added to a create action. That's perfectly normal. That is just to help you not to forget sharing the requests and saving senders and recipients as a whole. We're gonna get back to this one, but for now, let's finish the handler actions. So it says initialize issue field. This was based on a new issue, therefore it's going to be carried out in the create request event. Clicking on this little menu button, you can add the issue field, and we're going to be extracting the value from the email. So the issue field we want to initialize is the order number. You can see it here. The regular expression in this case is going to be the same, so I'm just gonna copy paste it here. The email field is going to be the body, and the value, as you can see from the tips here, is going to be group 1, because group 0 would mean the whole expression, and we don't want the whole expression to be the value of the custom field. We just want it to be this very last portion, which is going to be numbers, an order number. We're going to leave the default one empty because we don't want to set any default values for now, but you can also do that. That's also a new thing that you were not able to do in the field rules, and we're just going to save it. You can see that it's added here now. What else do we got? We've got workflow execution rules. This execution rule and approval is usually not carried out at creation. It's not going to be your first email. That's just not very lifelike. So I thought we could add it to the issue found for email section just below the add comment action. You can see that you cannot add it here. You have to click on the plus sign and click execute workflow transition. You can also do this by transition property. If you go to the workflows and you open the transition and then you click on property and then you add Jetty on email transition and set it to true, but I just don't find it very user-friendly at the moment. I think it's just easier to sort it out by email comment. Our regular expression is just going to be the same that we have here. Just going to copy paste it. We're going to include this text in the email's body. So I'm selecting the email field body, and I'm going to add the transition by its name. You can also add it by the ID. It's just I think it's easier to use the name of the transition. And I think we're done with this section now. We can just go back to the classic handler. Let's see what we have so far. Creation and comments are done. Customer creation will be detailed as signups. These two are unavailable at the moment. Handler actions done. Easy. And what you can find here is going to be auto-reply emails in the Nex-Gen Handler. Let's tackle the first one. Acknowledge new issues. That's going to be in the create action. You can click on the plus sign and select send auto-reply email. The template is going to be a service desk request created template. I think it looks good. The from address and the reply address are optional. If you leave it blank, the one in the SMTP settings is going to be used as a default. So I'm just going to leave it blank. I'm going to save it and do the same for the comment. Click on the plus sign, send auto reply email, select the one for service desk request commented, leave these ones empty, save them, done. And we've come to the most complex section, I believe, because senders and recipients are handled so much more differently in the Nex-Gen Handler, and you can do so much more with them that you can in the classic handler. It's amazing. So let me just show you how it's done. As you can see in the classic handlers, you were not really able to fine-tune saving your senders and recipients, but in the Nex-Gen Handler, you have different tabs for exclusions, for to and CC recipients, and you're going to have to add these actions separately for issues that are found for the email and for issues that are not found for the email. As you can see here, you don't have a manage senders and recipients action. You only have the update issue action. So you'll have to click on that and then find the manage senders and recipients action. And this is where you can see how different it is. For the senders, before in the classic handler, you were only able to save the address field or the name field, whoever was the sender. It didn't matter. You could only use one custom field for each of these attributes. Now, in the Nex-Gen Handler, you can see that the senders and the recipients can be configured based on their roles on the project. So, for example, customers who don't have access, agents, different kind of users, and even external people who can still send us emails. You remember, we accept emails for processing. You can see it here. So they can be set up with different custom fields. So what I'm going to do is, I've created a multi-user picker field called sender users for the senders. I'm just going to put them down here. For the users without permissions, you can still do that, use that. And for unknown people, you can use the sender address. Please note that this is going to just save the address. If you want to save the name of the recipients or the senders, you're going to have to use a set issue field action. I'm going to show you in a moment, but for now, let's just save the senders as is. You can also see that by default, email senders are saved in the reporter field, and recipients can be saved here. I usually just save customers as request participants, both from the to and the CC fields, because that's just a lot easier. Agents should be saved as watchers, in my opinion, but you can use basically any kind of multi-user picker field for the users. I think I've created a to recipient user field, which is a little bit different for users that are not agents, and I'm just going to use it here. And for people who are unknown to Jira, I'm just going to use a to recipient custom field, which is a text type custom field just for the address. If you remember, you've had the email address exclusion in the classic handler. This was in order to avoid mail loops, which is going to do the same here. Just copy paste it there. And what you can see here is the sign up. So that is to create service desk customers based on the incoming email. You can create customers from the sender, from the to recipient and the CC recipient. And you can also notify newly created customers with a service desk customer invitation template. This template has to be created from this type of template. It's called service desk customer invitation, and that is the exact same setting as you would have had here. So when customers are created, can be found in the sign up. But for now, I decided not to use it. You can try it if you'd like. But for now, I'm just going to save this so that I can show you how fast this can be done. The same has to be done for creation. But for creation, in the create action, you already have the manage senders and recipients action. So here in the comment, you had to add the update issue and then the save senders and recipients one. At creation, you only need to add manage senders and recipients to the create action and basically do the same here. So we're going to save the senders as sender user. I think it was still a user, and this was the sender address. For the recipients, customers are request participants, agents can be added as watchers. This can be a user picker, and then the text field. The exclusion is going to be the same, and I'm just going to turn off sign up because we don't need that here at the moment. Right, so as you can see, this was the senders and recipients action. Let me just emphasize that to and CC recipients can be added separately. So either you add people from the to or the CC fields, or both of them. But if you want to save people from the to and CC fields into different custom fields, you will have to add this save senders and recipients actions twice to your META handler action. Just going to save that. It looks to be corrected. And from what I can see, the email address exclusion has already been added to the save senders and recipients action. Split regexes can be found at creation and in the comment sections. So that's done. External email senders are accepted for emails processing. If you were to filter these, so if this was set to ignore emails, so if you want to actually exclude external email senders, you can do so in the filter emails section and click on emails sent from unknown addresses. The Jira mail strategy, ignoring emails from this or another Jira instance, is already added here, as well as large emails for which you can set the threshold, the maximum size in megabytes, and we already have the Proton Mail filter. This is how the Nex-Gen Handler is done. Let me show you how this works. I'm just going to send a couple of emails again. I'm just going to navigate to incoming mails. To delete the IMAP connections so that we're not going to have more than one mail account looking at the same inbox. Just delete this one. Go back in app administration, and if you remember, the mail accounts are already enabled, but because the handler were disabled, that didn't cause any problems. So now I'm just going to enable this one, and we're good to go. We can try this again. We can show you how this works. So I'm just going to send an email from my personal mail account. I'm going to test it by sending it to the mail handler, another email address, and another one as CC. Subject is going to be hello world. I'm going to put down welcome to the webinar. Order number is going to be this one, because why not? Just going to send it. If you remember, I've already mentioned that the email log has the classic handlers processed emails, but it also has the Nex-Gen handlers processed emails. Everything that's incoming or outgoing emails by our app is going to be in the email log, but the Nex-Gen handler already also has the incoming mail log and the incoming mail queue, which is where you can see how the email processing is going. Right now, I'm just going to check the inbox. You can see hello world is there. Please do not read the email until it's processed, because then the processing is going to stop. So if I just refresh the mail queue, yes, you can now see in the incoming mail queue that a new email is here. There's not going to be a lot of things you can see here. Usually it's mail headers there, but for some reason now it's empty. When it's done processing, you can find it in the incoming mail log. And if you remember, we've turned on the debug in the mail accounts and the mail handlers, and this is why we did that. So you can see what happens to people on CC, what happens with the regular expressions, and you can also see in the email log that demo 59 has been created. Again, you have the order number initialized as set up. It's in the correct project, with the correct type, request type. People are saved in the fields, and there's still no comments added on it. So I'm just going to reply to the original email, which is this one, to see if it finds it without actually having the issue key in the subject. You can see the subject, that's the original one. This is usually how it looks, RE, and then something as a response. So I'm just going to say this is a comment, and I'm also going to put down approve so that we can see if the status changes as expected. You can see that the email is arrived in the inbox. We're just waiting for this to be processed by the handler now. Just going to go back here, back into administration. You can check the incoming mail queue again. I'm not sure it's going to be there, as it can be pretty fast. As you can see, it's already in the mail log. You can see that the filter has accepted the message. We're going to go back here, refresh the page. You can see that the comment is added, the split regex cut it. It looks absolutely fine, with one exception. And is that the status did not change. And this is where you could start thinking, but I put down approve, I've sent the email, the workflow is correct, why is it not happening? One way to troubleshoot this is going back to your META handler and check what you've proved down as the regular expression. So here you can see that the transitions name was approved, while the regular expression is approved in capital. So you have to send something in the email that matches the regular expression and not the name of the transition. So let me show you how it's done correctly. I'm going to reply to all. And now I'm going to put down the correct regular expression. That's surely going to change the status. Yes, the email is already received by the mail account. Right, so this is the second email that I've sent. Going to go back here, refresh, and the status is now correct. So it just shows how important it is to get regular expressions right, otherwise it's not going to work. You can also use a great regular expression site. I'm using free formatter for my daily job. We have to write a lot of regular expressions for our customers, for users. As a support personnel, this is part of my job. Here you can select which syntax to use, what to look for. You can see I've already had quite a few Java regular expressions entered. You can paste part of the email to this entry field, and then you can run test match. It's going to show you what's wrong with it. You can see that it's false. You have lots of documentations about meta characters. So I suggest that you try this before you run your mail handler as an addition. Because before, in the field rules for the classic handler, we've had a test button, but it's not present at the Nex-Gen Handler, and so you can try this before actually sending emails to your Nex-Gen Handler to see if this works. Previously, we've also set up a filter to not accept any emails sent from the protonmail.com domain and to send them a bounce email based on this template. I'm just quickly going to show you if that works. So I'm just navigating to my ProtonMail account, just going to send a quick filter test email. To the mail account, just going to send it. So the email is still going to be received in the mailbox. It's going to stay in the mailbox. It's going to be skipped by the mail handler. It's not going to be processed. You'll be able to see it in the filtered out section if this works well. Let's hope it does. And you can see that it's been filtered out. You can see the header here. If you navigate to the incoming mail log, it's going to have the result as skipped. It's going to be in orange. If you expand it, you can see that the message was skipped because email filter by attribute find matches the sender. So that just shows that it works. I think that concludes our migration for now. I think everything's been moved from the classic handler to the Nex-Gen. But if anything's missing, let me know in the discussion after this video, and we're going to try and answer all your questions. Thank you.